name is Marnie Fraser, and this is my COM 110 speech. And the title of this speech is Furries. You don't have to be afraid. So when I say the word furries, what first comes to your mind? Is it an image of playful mascots on the edges of football fields? Or maybe Minnie and Mickey Mouse running around in Disneyland? But for the majority of people, the word furries brings a sense of deep dread, and it's, oh, those freaks again. But I'm here to talk about the fact that furries aren't what people think, and they have actually a lot of really bad stereotypes about them that just aren't true. So what is a furry? A furry is a person who likes animals or humanized animals, kind of like the ones in Zootopia. And unfortunately, they are victims of a very unfair bias and stereotype against them for a couple reasons that are not true. One of which is that if you're a furry, you're automatically attracted to animals, which is not true. Another stereotype about furries are that they walk around in public wearing essentially their version of leather straps and bondage gear, which, again, that's not the case. But it does freak a lot of people out, unfortunately. So what we need to do as a society is just sort of take a breath, calm down, and you don't have to be afraid. And that being a furry, for most people, is not about the sex. It's not about it at all. So some furry myths that I found, these two are from a study where 4,000 furries and almost 500 non-furries were asked a series of questions by a doctor in psychology, Dr. Courtney. And what he found out was that that only 21% of 5,000 think that furry fandom participation is all about sex, when actually 79% either they don't strongly agree or strongly disagree. And I was actually a little bit surprised about that. But, even though there's 21% saying, oh yeah, it's all about the sex, when really you have all these people who don't think being part of the furry fandom is all about being attracted to animals, and that's just weird. Anyway, so another myth that people have are furries think they're animals, when in actuality almost 50% of 5,000 don't think that at all, and less than 10% think, oh yeah, I'm an animal trapped in a human's body. Another misinterpretation of furries is that being a furry means you're mentally ill, like you're mentally disabled, or you have Down syndrome, or you're retarded, when in actuality, a lot of them are in college, because the demographic of furries is 80% male. Their ages are 18 to 23, average age. The vast majority of them are white, and in order to actually not participate in the furry fandom, but you need money to make the fursuits, and fursuits are pretty expensive. And then this graph shows the opinions that the furries have about their own fandom. And the blue line is importance of sex to the respondent, which, as you can see, it's very not important. Importance of sex to others in the fandom, it's a little bit higher. And importance of sex as perceived by the public is way up here, so you can see the discrepancy between the people who are in the fandom and think that being furry is all about the sex versus what they think society thinks of anyone in the furry fandom being all about the sex. So now that we know what furries actually are and we have a good idea, I'm going to switch posters and change gears a little bit. Whoa. And instead of talking about what furries are not, let's talk about what furries actually are. And the main point is that furries are just like any other fanatic. You know, you see football people, shirts ripped off, chest painted their fan colors, wearing a cheese head, and society doesn't bat an eye to those people. But just because people dress up as giant huskies, they're labeled as the freaks. So when we ask the question of, like, why are you a furry? Like, why do you like to do what they do? Almost 50% said that they strongly agree that it has an entertainment value. So for a lot of people, being a furry, you know, it's fun, it's creative, it's a way to kind of maybe vent frustrations by working on like a new character costume, or, you know, going to conventions and hanging out. So a lot of people, it's just fun. They also use, you know, being in the fandom as an escape from reality. And as you can see, 32% say that they strongly agree with using their furriness to kind of escape from reality. And they do this by, you know, dressing up in full body fursuits. And it's easier to, you know, forget about that exam when you're, you know, you look like a husky. So it's essentially a different way of kind of just relaxing a little bit. A lot of people participate, or a lot of people think that as they're participating, they fulfill an aesthetic. So I like it because I think I look cool, and for a lot of characters, they actually do look really cool, because there's, you know, rainbow colors, and if you make the costume right, it looks really cool. And I think that's why a lot of people do it, because when you do get to create your own character, you can make it, you know, whatever you want. If you like horns, you can give it horns. If you like tails, you can give it tails. So a lot of people just like the look of their costume. And the last thing, you know, everyone wants to feel like they belong, and for a lot of furries, they feel like they don't. And so when in the fandom, they experience a sense of belonging, and you can see here, 25% say that they strongly agree with, I like being in the furry fandom because I feel like they belong. And for probably a lot of people, the furry fandom is the only fandom that actually, you know, accepts them. They may not be accepted by the jocks or the chess players, But when they're in a group with other people dressed as animals, they feel like at home, and that may be the reason behind the myth that, oh, furries are just homosexual all over the place. When actually that's not the case, and over 60% of furries are heterosexual. But the reason people think they are is because it's just a really open fandom. And that means people can talk about, it's a safe place for them. So they can talk about being gay, they can talk about, being transgender or anything like that, just because it's a safe place. So knowing what you do now, now it's time for action. And what we need to do as a collective society is just sort of take a breath. And what we can do in order to make the place better for us and the furry community is don't be so quick to judge appearances. Because not every furry walking down the street is, out to molest little children or whatever. Because we've already proven that over 75% of furries, it's not about the sexual attraction. It's about having fun, it's about belonging, it's about participating in something that's, a group activity. Another way to kind of help the rift between us is to just think of furries as really major football nerds. I mean, obviously, they're not football nerds. But think of them in the same light, because every fandom has fanatics, whether it be football, chess, martial arts. We all have those little nuts in our families. So, just because there are a few bad apples, don't think that's the whole barrel, because it's not. Another thing to do is when there's a conversation or something and furries get brought up, like, oh, furries are, all homosexuals, you can correct the person and say, actually, no, because over 61% are heterosexual. So, you can use this knowledge to help inform other people, and help warn them against stereotypes. And last but not least, ultimately, being a furry is a personal decision, and unless a furry has been like a jerk to you personally, or a friend of yours, they don't deserve all these mean stereotypes about them. Thank you.